these blue books here are the historical books. Like if you're reading like a story and you're like trying to figure out what's going on, and it starts and it kind of goes through the whole story. This is the historical narrative of the Old Testament. Ends here 400 years before Jesus. The narrative story will pick up with the book of Matthew in the chronology of your Bible. These up here are the major and minor prophets. And you'll notice over here that the book of Deuteronomy is not part of this narrative story. So like if you're reading, you start in Genesis. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and he creates man, and then sin comes into the world. And you remember there's the fall and the flood and the Tower of Babel. And all of those things are really important if we're to understand the Bible. If we're going to make any sense, the Bible is a continuous storyline, and you've got to have this part of the story to understand what's happening over here. But Deuteronomy is part of the book of Numbers. So Moses has led the people out of Egypt. Egypt has been destroyed. They're in the wilderness for a year. God's getting them their tabernacle, their priesthood, everything they need so they can go into the land. He's giving them order and structure so that they can be successful and follow him. But you remember, we get to Numbers 13, and they are fearful, and they're afraid to go in. And their fear, they turn away from God, don't obey God. They don't think that God is big enough. They don't believe God is sufficient. They don't believe that God is awesome. What they believe is that people are bigger and stronger than God, and so they acquiesce, and they don't obey God. And then you remember they wander around in the wilderness, and that generation passes away, and God says, because you were not willing, I'll give it to your children. Friends, if you and I turn down the blessing of God today, know that God is a God who loves to bless. He'll give it to somebody else, and that's exactly what he does to another generation. So now we get at the end of the book of Numbers, this new generation is poised to enter the promised land, and Moses steps up and under the inspiration of the Spirit of God, gives us the book of Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy means the second law. He's repeating much of what's already been said. He's pulling it together in 10 sermons. It's 34 chapters long. It's amazing. And it's really important because in Deuteronomy, it tells us about the death of Moses. And that's the reason we actually had to do it. We were going to skip Deuteronomy and just go on. But the problem is you can't understand what's going to happen in the land. Why is it significant that they take possession? Why is it significant that they destroy the Canaanite nations? Why is it significant that a new guy named Joshua is leading? So you have to have the book of Deuteronomy to catch that. And the point of Deuteronomy is this: God has been faithful. God is faithful. Choose life. Follow him. So this is where they're poised. If you're thinking about on your map, they've come from the land of Egypt. They've wandered around the wilderness. They've been down across the Red Sea, all of that. They've come around the land of Edom, through the land of Moab. They've conquered all of this. It's already being distributed to some of the tribes, Manasseh, Gad, and Reuben on the east side of the Jordan River. They're poised to go into the west side, and you remember they're going to attack Jericho in the book of Joshua first. So they're poised. They're right here. And so Moses calls all the people together, and he gives the 10 sermons of the book of Deuteronomy.